This is a reminder that you are not your mental illness. Your mental illness is a trait that you live with. It's something that you have to deal with on a constant basis, but it's not who you are. And I think every once in a while, we just need to be reminded of that. And I say we, meaning me as well. I need to be reminded of that. Like, share, subscribe, please. We have picked up a couple of hundred more followers, people that are joining the conversation. I want to welcome them. Please like, share, subscribe, get the word out. Let's dive in and let's talk about this thing called identity and what it means when you have a mental illness. Let's dive right in and see what happens, yeah? Welcome to Mark My Words. Mark My Words is the story of my journey from a place where I was shattered to where I could live again. In the last few years, more than any other time in my life, society has been trying to push this idea of identity. See, when I was a kid, it was multiculturalism, and our identity was that we were the broad spectrum of everybody. We were all different, but we were all one. Nowadays, it seems like if you don't have an identity in some particular area, you can't speak about a subject. So if I'm a white person that grew up in an Aboriginal community, by the fact that I am white, I can't speak about that community, even though they're part of my family history. If I grew up in a household of people that are LGBT and I am not LGBT, I do not have the expertise that the other people have in that. I might have lived in a country for a number of years, but if I wasn't born there, I don't have authority to speak about that situation. And I think this is a trap that we've fallen into, and I hope it's a trend that will dissipate. But where it affects us with mental illness is we can get caught in the trap of believing that our mental illness is who we are. Now, I live with complex PTSD. It took me so long to put that lives with in there. I have PTSD. I'm a PTSD survivor. I'm PTSD'd. I'm being facetious, obviously, with that last one. But for many years, that was my identity. That was how I identified myself. And it was a false equivalency because mental illness became the defining trait of who I was and the symptoms thereof. I assumed that that was actually who I was. Mental illness has affected me. It has damaged me. It has caused difficulty in my life. But it is not who I am, and it took me a lot of years to work that out. Why am I saying this again? I'm hoping that most of you that are listening to this will be thinking, Mark, this is ridiculous. Why are you talking about this? I mention it because it comes up so often. I'll be speaking at schools. I'll be speaking at workplaces. I'll be sharing my experience. And people will come up to me and they'll talk about things that I've said regarding particularly the fact that mental illness is a bump in the road. Sure, it might be Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest, but it is still just a bump in the road. It's not the end of the journey. It's not who I am. It's the struggle that I've learned to overcome. It is the difficulty that I've had to learn to live with, but it's not who I am. I am many things. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I'm a podcaster. I'm so many more things. But to me, I'm just Mark, and I'm just trying to do my best. Trying to just ensure that my family has a happy life, ensure that my wife feels loved, ensure that my kids feel protected, safe. But I am not my mental illness. And I'm repeating that over and over again because for somebody out there, you need to hear this because you've been living with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, so many other disorders, and that has become who you are. Now, I know and love people that have or live with schizophrenia. I would never say that they are schizophrenic. I mean, that's such a, in my mind, it's a horrible thing to say. My friend is bipolar. No, my friend is not bipolar. My friend lives with bipolar. When you stop allowing yourself to identify by your mental illness, you're taking back some of your own power. You are saying that I am a complete and whole person that lives with something that is incredibly hard to live with, incredibly damaging, incredibly impacting, but it's not who I am. As soon as you're able to say that, you'll get a freedom. Now, I often try and push the boundaries of my mental illness. I know what my limits are. I know what I can and can't do, but I'll try and push through them. Here's an example. I sought books at my local opportunity shop, my local op shop, Goodwill for Americans. I can only last a certain amount of time. I know that after about 2 hours of working there, doing the things that I know that I can do. So I know that I can't work behind the counter. I know that I can't be with customers too much because I get one difficult customer and then another difficult customer. And by the time the third customer comes along, I'm done. I'm like, blah, 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 and that's not what I'm there for. I show up, I work behind the scenes, doing what I'm comfortable with, doing what I know I can do, which is sorting books and putting them on the shelves. Love it. So great for my mental health. If I'm having a difficult day and I can't pull myself out of it, I just show up at my local Vinnie's and I sort some books for a couple of hours. But I know that I can only last 2 hours. Sometimes the job lasts longer than that. Sometimes I will just cut off at the 2 hour mark. I can feel it in myself. As soon as I start to get this, I can't even explain what the feeling is, but as soon as I feel it, it's like, okay, I've had enough. I've done it. I'm at my limit. Sometimes the job will be a bit longer and I may need an extra half hour. There are times where that half hour just doesn't exist and I need to pull up stumps and go home. Pack my bag and go home. I, I forget that so many of the listeners are American, so I'm trying to walk that line between colloquialism and understanding. So forgive me if I if that seems to be a sidetrack, but my biggest audience is America. So hello, if you're in America, thank you for listening to this. I appreciate it. The point that I'm trying to make is I try and push myself at times. So there'll be a time where, hey, there might be an extra hour work. I might do an extra 15 minutes. I might do an extra 20 minutes. On a rare occasion, I'll do an extra half hour. But I know within myself that I'm pushing it. I'm happy to do that every once in a while. What has allowed me to do that in part is not saying I can only do something because I have PTSD. I'm a PTSD person. I'm I, I can't even use the words that I used to use to describe myself living with PTSD because it's not who I am. Now, if I let PTSD be my identity and I say to somebody, I've only got 2 good hours in me and I live with that religiously, then I'm limiting myself. I might be having a great day, a really good day, a really successful day. Do an extra 15, 20 minutes. That's a cause of celebration for me. Hey, I've gone a little bit further than I thought I could. Now, next week, I might only last an hour, but that's okay. That's just the way it goes. That's what living with mental illness is all about. It's the fact that it doesn't define me. It causes limitations. Yeah, it causes difficulties, but it's not who I am. And it's not how I am going to dictate the way that I live, which unfortunately is this thing about identity. This idea that it is the coming up with something, a reason to almost stand out, to be part of the crowd. See, when I was a kid, we would play with anyone. We didn't care who you were. My family was, in many ways, very progressive. Didn't matter what color you were. Didn't matter where you were from. Didn't matter if you had a disability or not. We just treated you like everybody else. When my children have been growing up, and particularly through this identity thing, particularly the boy-girl thing. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? I got really mad at my kids' school, when I was young, because my son came home one day and he said, "Dad, I want to be a boy." And it's like, "You're a boy. I don't know what the problem is." And he said, "No, Dad, at school, they told me that being a boy could be bad, and being a boy makes you do bad things. But I like being a boy." This devastated me, because why should a 5, 6-year-old child be torn apart by this whole thing of let's put people in a box and keep them there, and let's figure out that box as early as we can. Now, my son, as far as I know, is a heterosexual young man. When he was a kid, he used to love vacuuming. When he was a kid, he would play with my daughter's dolls. We never once went, well, let's question his identity. All we did was said he's a kid and let him just be a kid. He's playing with a doll. Who cares? Well, he's vacuuming. Oh. Now, in our day and age, that there's some of you that are going, well, Mark, you've just said that vacuuming is a traditional female thing, and it was. Let's not pretend that it wasn't. But I grew up with an incredibly powerful mother, incredibly powerful, and she vacuumed. She made us vacuum. she she certainly taught us that household duties aren't dictated by gender. But this was what made me sad about my son, is his school was trying to make a 6-year-old discover his gender identity. And of course, I get that for some people this is a big issue, but it's only some people. It's not every person. And I mean, I've heard so many stories about this, kids coming out in different ways with different identities, not knowing if this identity is good or that identity is good. But in this instance, of course, I'm talking about mental illness. And I'm talking about the fact that you are not your mental illness. You are not your mental illness. Your mental illness is something that you live with, something that you have to deal with, but it's not who you are. You are so much more than your mental illness, and I can promise you, mental illness is a bump in the road. It's part of the journey. It's not the destination. Your life didn't end the day that you got mental illness. It got harder, became a struggle, but it's not the end of the story, and I can promise you that. I've been to the lowest of the low. I have attempted to take my own life. I have lived with severe clinical depression, anxiety, hyper-awareness, insomnia. All these things together worked hard to destroy me, but they didn't. And while it's difficult, it doesn't have to destroy you. I promise you, there is light on the other side. I want to thank you again for checking out Mark My Words. Again, for those that might have missed it at the beginning, thank you so much for all the new people that have joined our little podcast. It's funny because I don't do this for the money. I do it because I hope it'll help people. And when people decide to agree to follow or like something that I do, it spurs me on to keep going and to keep trying to help people. So I want to thank you for that. So if you would, like, share, subscribe. I appreciate you, and I very much look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Mark My Words. I'd like to thank my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And I can't forget the band Adelaide, who allows us to use their song as our theme.